Hello, everyone. Welcome to BoilerBall post game in the lounge. I am Sam Sprunger, as always, joined by half the time joined by Dustin Dustin Schutte, our All American, doing on All American things. Dustin and not showing up to the post game.
Yeah, that's slacker behavior. It will not be tolerated. I don't know what we can do. Maybe suspend him for one race next season. Is he still?
He's
running next year.
Oh yeah, he's I believe a senior next year, so that would really hit it home to him. I think a suspension.
Not going to give him All-American status if he's out for a race.
Yeah, well, yeah. You do what you got to do to keep things going, right? The Boilermakers, fifth ranked in the country, 79-72 win over Iowa. Dustin, this was a game of two different halves. It just turned out very well for Purdue at the end.
Yeah, and this was a game that I think coming into it was, you looked at it at Bennett Sturts versus Braden Smith, and in the first half, Bennett Sturts won that matchup, and in the second half, I think you could argue Braden Smith won it. And but it was an incredible basketball game, Sam, and it had its moments, and Mackey Arena, was holding its breath for a good portion of tonight's game, but ultimately Purdue made enough plays down the stretch, had some pivotal moments, and was able to pull through. And there's really a lot to talk about from tonight's game.
Yeah, you talked about Bennett Sturts winning the first half in the matchup against Braden Smith. He only won it 5 points to none, but Braden had four assists on that, and Sturts had 3. So yeah, he did. Overall, he won that first half, but that second half, Braden really kind of took the team upon his back and kind of willed their way to winning, as he had the same 4 assists in the second half, but he had 16 for the game, which means he had a pretty big second half.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell he was taking it upon himself to get to the basket, score a little bit more, be more effective, because that opens things up for the rest of the Purdue offense. And yeah. I think in the first half, that's exactly how Iowa wanted to play. Somebody sitting next to me at the said this has kind of been a kind of a clunky first half, and I said that's exactly what Iowa wants to do. Is they want to slow down tempo. They take good shots, and they were 7 of 10 from 3-point range in that first half, and I think they were 12 of 22. From the field. So it's and right. The funny thing was, Sam, Purdue had 29 shot attempts. So Purdue was doing what it wanted to do offensively too. It just wasn't connecting at a high enough rate. It wasn't getting the stops on the defensive end. I thought Braden being more aggressive kind of put Iowa into a little bit of a panic, almost like they didn't know what to do defensively. And you saw how much that affected them in that second half. But even with Braden scoring out of the gate in the second half, this was Purdue still struggled to get stops. This was a 5-point Iowa lead midway through the second half before, Jakari Harris started making some big plays, and Purdue finally got some turnovers and was able to get some stops, string some stops together. And then, eventually I don't even think pull away is the right term, because they never really pulled away, but made enough plays down the stretch where they were able to get out of here with a win.
Yeah, you talked, I posted a screenshot of the first half percentages. Iowa shot 55% from the field, 70% from threes. They were 3 of 5 from the line, and they were only up 3 points at the half. And for Purdue to shoot 38% from the field, that really, to me, was a sign of they out rebounded Iowa by 4. Like they played. Iowa played as well as they could have, I think, in that first half, and they were only up 3. So while they did things that I felt that they probably and Braden Smith had 0 points, TKR had 2, and Purdue only trailed by 3 at the half. I just felt that, while Iowa was doing everything that they seemed like they wanted to be doing, the fact that Purdue was hitting just enough to stay close, it was going to make it difficult for Iowa in the second half.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, because now I will say that early in the second half, I think there's a little bit of nervous energy, because you had 2 back-to-back turnovers that led to breakout dunks for Iowa, and then all of a sudden it was a 9-point lead, 7-point lead, 7 or 9, I don't remember.
It was 9.
Okay, my math was correct. And so there were some concerns there, but I did think the same thing. I thought Braden hasn't scored. TKR has 2 points. Both Clough and Trey was on the bench for 13 minutes that first half. Oscar was on the bench for the final 8. So you were without 2 of your starters, and you find yourself only down 3. And Iowa shot as and that's, I think, sometimes can be a little bit of the negative side of the way Iowa plays. Is they played 7 of 10 perfect. Purdue's key players don't make any real impact in that first half. You get 2 guys in foul trouble, but because you play such a slow tempo, you're only up 3. I think if Iowa would have played a faster tempo, that could be a 10 to 12 point lead at halftime. And I don't know that Purdue comes back from that. But, I thought, speaking to that, the reason Purdue was able to only be down 3, Jack Benner comes in, hits 2 big threes. Played really well. Daniel Jacobson, I thought, I looked at the stat sheet at the end of the night, and I don't know if you had the same reaction, and I just kind of go, huh? Like, he finished the game with 7 points, 9 rebounds. He gets 5 points and 7 rebounds in the first half. And he did that he only had, I think he had 13 total minutes tonight. And so I think he played 8 in the first and then 5 in the second half, something along those lines. I don't remember what the exact numbers are, but for him to come in and be that productive in that span when Purdue needed him the most, I thought that was, those 2 guys, Daniel Jacobson and Jack Benner, they didn't do much in the second half. They didn't make the big plays down the stretch, but they were crucially important to Purdue getting a win tonight, because if they don't come off the bench and knock down some shots and clean up the glass and play well defensively, again, this is we're probably talking about a bigger lead at halftime for the Hawkeyes, and they probably leave here with a win.
Well, and they combined for 12 points or 11 points in that first half. That right there is huge. Both of them coming off the bench and contributing in with their points, along with their defense. You had TKR in a little bit of foul trouble. Clough also in that foul trouble in that first half. So Daniel had to come in and do some positive things, and that's exactly what he did. You made the mention, I believe it was on a post that that lob to Jacobson is becoming more and more dangerous as we get later in the season, because more and more people from the team are getting more comfortable with tossing it up there. Is this something that you saw as a possibility? I didn't see. I thought, well, of course Braden's going to have it. Maybe TKR is going to have that a little bit more, but everybody else seems like they're more comfortable getting it to Daniel in that lob.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Trey Kaufman-Renn is the one player I think the most who has developed that, where he can get the ball, catch the ball at the free throw line at the elbow, and then he sees Jacobson at the rim or cutting to the basket, and he's comfortable throwing that lob, and he's delivered some darts to him. Jakari tried to do it, and Daniel didn't convert, but he got to the foul line on that one. Right. And he was almost able to throw it down. And then Braden had one from the top of the key where he just didn't even move. Jacobson was cutting to the basket like it was an NBA type play. And so I think the comfort level and the fact that Daniel's getting more comfortable catching those lobs from other players, I don't know that I saw that becoming a major threat. I knew it was going to be a threat from Braden, but I didn't know if anybody else, because that requires timing and it requires chemistry and being on the same page. And it does seem like, now I know I've only mentioned 3 players, but part of this too, Sam, is even if you don't convert, just throw it up to the tallest guy and let him go up and get it. Right? It's kind of like a quarterback when you have the world's best receiver. Just throw it down the field and see if he can make a play. And I think that that's a little bit of the case with Daniel Jacobson and why he's becoming so effective. Because let me say, as good as that pass was from Braden, it was off target. Daniel had to go behind his head to catch it and then slam it down. At least that's what it looked like from my angle. I'll have to go back and watch it on TV. But from up here, it looked like it was a little up. So I think Daniel at times still has trouble collecting passes, but that's usually when it's kind of lower, when it's maybe at his chest or into his stomach. But when you go up high, he's getting really good at that. And that's such a weapon for Purdue, because not many people are going to stop it. And if he doesn't get the dunk, he's probably going to get fouled.
Yeah, and he's 4'7" and being a little string beanie, he's still very versatile for a big dude, and I like that capability, because he can make that adjustment on a not so perfect pass, but a good enough pass that only he can catch it and make that play. And I think that's why I'm pretty impressed by his progression thus far. Now, he still isn't. he still isn't producing the way that some people thought. Oh, well, Daniel Jacobson 7'4", he's going to be he's still a freshman in my opinion, even though he's a sophomore. He didn't play hardly at all last year, so he's still getting used to how to do things at the college level. CJ Cox. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just, the one thing I would chime in there is just look at Zach Edey's freshman year. Like, it took him, and even his sophomore year, it took him some time too. So I think everybody thinks that everybody on Purdue's roster should be averaging 15 points and 10 rebounds, but that's not always how it works, especially when you're behind Oscar Clough and Trey Kaufman-Wren. It's going to take time, but he's been a really good player. And tonight, like I said, 7 points, 9 rebounds, and he was critically important to keep Purdue in the game in the first half.
CJ Cox. Let's make that transition now. I honestly cannot tell you what plus minus, what goes into plus minus, because going into this game, seeing him play against Bennett Sturts, he D'd him up belly to belly and just frustrated the living daylights out of Sturts for most of that first half. And I know Braden ended up guarding him a lot in that second half. But my goodness, I am falling even more head over heels about CJ and the way he plays defense.
Yeah, I mean, basically, and some coaches will say this as well, like sometimes plus minus is very misleading in one game because it depends on who you're on the floor. Like CJ probably was a -2 because he was on the floor when Purdue was losing. He probably played a majority of that first half. And then the second half, when he came out, that's when Jakari came in and gave Purdue really good minutes. So Matt Painter's not going to pull him out. Now, there was a segment where Jakari was on the floor. CJ, they went all perimeter defense. It was CJ, Jakari, Braden, and then Oscar and TKR. But the point being is, like, you can't, in a single game sample size, you can't always look at the plus minus. Now, there are times when you can. I remember last year when Purdue played Indiana, Trey Kaufman-Wren was a plus 26, and they ended up winning by, I think it was 4 or 5 points, but he had foul trouble in that game. When he went out, Indiana was just throttling Purdue. He comes back in, he's a plus 26. But tonight is a perfect example of CJ Cox did just about everything you want him to do. He defended the basketball well. He knocked down a huge clutch three-pointer after Iowa had just made a 3 late in this game to kind of keep, I think his triple kept the game at a 5-point game. But he made some big time plays, and his ability to defend, he just kind of fell victim to being in the game at the wrong time. Yeah. But he's a reason. You could look at it this way too. He's the reason it was only -2 as opposed to being -8 or 10.
Yeah. I watched him multiple trips down play D against Sturts, and granted, Sturts had to be a little cautious in that the time that he spent in the first half that he played, because for most of it, he had 2 fouls shortly out of the gate. I think it was 2.5 minutes into the game. He had 2 fouls. Coach McCollum pulled him and then put him right back in about a minute and a half later. And I don't know if it was because that he was worried that maybe it was going to start getting back out of hand. Like Purdue might make their run at that point, and we can't let that happen. So he put Sturts back in. But at the same time, CJ was just basically the line from Hoosiers. At the end of the game, I want to know what kind of chewing gum he is. CJ knew he was Dentine. Yeah, that's a good reference too. Yeah, I mean, I think Bennett. I'm just going to say this too. Bennett Sturts picked up his 3rd foul in the first half. It just wasn't called. He left his feet, knocked Braden off. I don't know how that wasn't called. He should have had 3 fouls. But I do think Ben McCollum at some point, it's kind of like probably the way Matt Painter trusts Braden Smith. He probably has that same trust in Bennett Sturts. And at the same time, if you get it, like, he probably says, okay, I can't afford to be down 10 points to Purdue on the road. So if Bennett picks up his 3rd, like, we're not going to be in a good spot whether he's out of the game and doesn't have a 3rd foul, or if he does pick up his 3rd foul. So I'm going to roll the dice here. So I actually didn't have a problem with that. I think that's trusting your point guard. I think that's also, trying to stay in the game. And obviously they had a lead at half, and he didn't pick up that 3rd foul. Did he ever pick up that 3rd foul? Maybe late in the game. I didn't. I didn't keep track. No, he only had 2 personal fouls.
Only the 2.
The game.
I was going to say. Unless it was late when they were
2.5.
They had to play a little foul game there at the end. I didn't think he picked up that 3rd. So, he played extremely well. But yeah, to your point, CJ Cox, I thought, did a really good job. And I thought Jakari did at times too, but there were times in that second half too where Bennett Sturtz was trying to hit a step. It's just like, what are you doing? Like the shot was so far off, and a little bit was desperation trying to make something happen, which that's what playmakers do. But I thought CJ did a good job of frustrating him. He's a 39% 3-point shooter, closer to the 40%, and he finished 2 for 9 from 3-point range. I know he had 19 points, but to go 2 of 9 and he's one of their better perimeter shooters, that speaks to how well Purdue played CJ and Braden. Those two guys who primarily played defense on him spoke to how well those two defended him tonight.
Well, you talk about that, and then you have Tavion Banks and Cale Combs, who combined for 7 of 8 from threes. So Iowa was a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde when it came to 3-pointers, because they ended up under 50%, but they shot that for the and like you said, a few of those are out of desperation at the end. They just didn't, and they missed those. But I was talking to somebody. It's a buddy of mine that is an Iowa fan. He says, what are the chances Iowa comes in and beats Purdue? And I said, they're going to have to shoot 70% from threes if Braden Smith goes into the teens in points and has a high level assist. They pretty near did that in the first half. I'm like, good Lord, they went 7. I mean, if I would have just kept my mouth shut, but this was, and Coach Painter mentioned it in the presser, water finds its level, and it found its level when it comes to the second half. Iowa just slowed down when it came to threes.
Yeah, compared to the first half, they did, but they were still 5 of 15, so still 30. No. Like they weren't terrible. Yeah, no, they weren't. But you're right. Like, and what did he say? They had 7 3-pointers taken by guys that don't normally take them, so that kind of threw them off a little bit too.
When they had 3 bounce off the rim and then go high in the air and come back down in, and they banked one in.
They did have some lucky bounces. There were a couple where we were sitting next to, gosh, that's 3 of them. That's 4 of them. And so they did have friendly rims, but I will say that to me, a little bit of this is concerning, because now I don't remember the Washington game, and I didn't look at the stats, but now I know this is at least 2 games in a row. If you look back to Penn State, where teams shot the ball extremely well from deep, and Penn State was not a good 3-point shooting team. Now Iowa's a 37% shooting team this type of performance you can expect from an Iowa, right. But right. The bigger concern to me was not that those shots rolled in on some of those 3-pointers. It's that of the 10, I would maybe of the 7 makes, 5 or 6 of them were wide open. Like there was nobody, or they were extremely late getting there. So that, to me, I think they defended it a little bit better in the second half, and again late in the game, I think that they hit some miracle tough shots there, at least two of them.
Yeah.
But you've got to be able to defend the 3 ball better. And just the last 2 games, Purdue did not do a good job of that. And again, Penn State did a good job hitting some shots over Purdue on Saturday. But when you have your last 2 opponents who have essentially shot the same mark, Penn State was 12 of 27, Iowa is 12 of 25 tonight. You got to be a little bit better defensively. And I'm sure that's going to be something that they address before they head out to the West Coast.
Well, and that's a big thing is they're going to the West. They're going on the road, and you let the offense to a home crowd start hitting threes like they don't normally do, or like they might want to, and you get them that momentum. It can turn into a big hole real quick. And so I think Coach Painter and the coaching staff have a lot to work on when it comes to that, just to essentially, it's going to happen. They're going to make shots. Threes are going to fall for the other team. You just can't let them have such wide open shots that we've been seeing the past 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest concern. If you can just get into rotation. And one of the things I thought was interesting was I did think Purdue's defense improved dramatically when it was CJ, Jakari, and Braden were on the floor together. I just thought that they didn't give up as many open shots. I think that there was one defensive lapse, and I don't remember. I feel like it was Trey and somebody else were both chasing a 3-point, and it left like it was a miscommunication. And that's one thing that Painter did say was like, a lot of the issues defensively tonight were because of communication issues. And so one of the things that I noticed, and I don't know that I noticed this with CJ, but Jakari, when he was in the game, was directing traffic and really being a vocal leader out there. And I don't know that it was all game, but it was at least 2 or 3 possessions in a row where he was the guy who was the eyes and the ears and directing things on defense. And I don't know if that came through on TV or not, but I think that was, and that's a big reason why he can go 1 of 2, have 3 points and 2 steals and still make a significant impact in the game because, his ability to communicate, his ability to guard around the perimeter. When you get into, it's going to be interesting because Purdue's going to play some teams that can really shoot the basketball in the future. They got Michigan, they got Michigan State, they got Illinois, they got Nebraska. I'm going to be interested to see if we see a little bit more of this Jakari, CJ, Braden lineup.
To where it's more around the perimeter.
Yes, and and don't get me wrong. It's not to say that I think that Fletcher Loyer is going to be not a non-starter anytime. But if you find yourself in a hole where you can't get a stop, do you go to that lineup? Does Matt Painter go to that lineup maybe a little bit earlier in a game? I don't know. Probably depends on how Fletch is shooting the basketball. But tonight, I think that lineup really helped Purdue make that run in the second half.
Well, I can tell you he's not going to be afraid to. If he thinks he needs to, he's not going to be afraid to move to that if he thinks it's going to in the long run. And I don't think that Fletch would be upset with the fact that he made that move in order to do it. I think that he's got the team first manner pretty well locked in. He wants to win first, then get his personal stats or whatever. But that second half. There were a couple of times that right at the beginning, I posted it saying that it felt like this was going to be a TKR led half. And the more he ended up with 10 points and a few rebounds, a couple of rebounds. He didn't have very many rebounds. Actually, he only had 2. But he was being involved a lot, and he had a couple and ones right at the beginning of the second half, and then he kind of cooled off and it went to Braden. I don't think it's concerning. It's just unusual to see him kind of tail off like he has the past couple of games at times, not even the full time, just at times.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that probably too is he wasn't able to get into a rhythm at all in the first half. And then the second half, I don't know. Sometimes I think what I noticed there were times when Iowa, it seemed like, was triple teaming him. So they went to immediate double. And at times I think when Trey gets frustrated, I feel like he tries to do too much sometimes. Because there's at least one time that I remember where he was trying to do too much, lost the ball, and it led to a breakout dunk for Iowa. That was part of that, quick run that Iowa had to push the lead out to 9. I think there was another time when he tried to do that and lost the ball in the second half, but I just feel like sometimes he gets frustrated and then tries to take the game over, where if he would have played the way he did, and Iowa's got a lot to do with that. Iowa can frustrate you on the defensive end. They're a very good defensive team. Yeah. But the way he played to start that second half, back-to-back and ones, and gets 6 total points and really kind of help Purdue get kick-started there in that second half. That's the Trey Kaufman-Renn you want to see. And when he's one-on-one, he's lethal. But at times tonight, I thought that Iowa was sending 2 and maybe even a third defender if he got in the lane, but he had already kind of made up his mind. The other thing is it seems to me, and I'd have to look at the numbers on this too, it seems that floater has been a little more off this year than it was a season ago. And I don't know, look, he was a high volume shooter last year, had to rely on his offense a lot, obviously, for Purdue to be successful. And I wonder if that's a shot when you don't shoot it as frequently, if maybe the aerodynamics or the feel of it just doesn't feel the same because you're not shooting it frequently. I don't know. That's something but also, we've talked about other players going through slumps. I don't know if it's just a little bit of a shooting issue or if it's just, if there's something to the fact that he's not shooting it as frequently. So maybe his timing is a little bit off or his touch is a little bit off on that shot right now.
Very well could be. It's been unusual. We'd seen only basically one instance of that last year, period, and that was at IU, to where kind of he fell off the face of the planet and we didn't see him. whereas most of the other days, but like you said, they've had to rely on him a little bit, or had to rely on him more last year for his offense, whereas this year it's a little bit of a different type of thing, to where it's not necessarily do or die if TKR doesn't score 20 points.
Yeah. They don't have to have him score 20 points in order to win. And I say all this, and he's still coming into tonight. I don't think this includes tonight's stats. Coming into tonight, he was shooting 57% from the field.
Right.
So last year I think he finished 59.5%. So it's not like he's had this drastic drop off. But I do feel like I've noticed a little bit of a slight drop off in terms of that floater.
Yeah, he was 4 of 10 tonight. So I mean, he had a little bit of struggle from the field, but nothing to, like panic. I don't think there's anything really hugely to panic about. I really do think that I think if it's anything, it's like you said, it's just a little bit of a slump maybe that he's going through. And that's, everybody goes through it. And I think he'll be just fine. But big win tonight for the Boilermakers to get to 6-0 in the Big Ten. And they go to the West Coast starting on Saturday against USC, and then on Tuesday they are at Pauley Pavilion to take on UCLA.
Yeah, that should be interesting. That's a quick, for a West Coast trip. This is going to be a quick turnaround for them. So it's going to be important to try to get off to a quick start out there in LA, and it's going to be 2 tough matchups. And so this is. Purdue had the benefit of a 3-game homestand, and now it's time to go on the road and see what you can do, and see if you can. Right now, you're trying to keep pace with Nebraska, right? Both teams 6-0 in the Big Ten,
just like it was drawn up, right? Just like it was predicted,
just as everybody projected. Yeah, so it should be interesting. Both games are obviously critically important, but we'll see what happens. It should be some entertaining basketball out there on the West Coast.
Yeah, a good closeout of the game tonight after Purdue fell down by 9. A real big, a nice closeout for the game, for Purdue to get back into it. I think my biggest, my biggest to see what happens if Purdue goes 1-1. Well, they're going 39-1 this year, but if they go 1-1 on the West Coast, and come back, it's what they do against Illinois when they come back. Because if you remember last year, after they went out west, they came back and played Ohio State and got beat. And it's a matter of how do you recover from that trip out west. And you could have the most veteran team in the world, you still got to recover in some sense when you spend any amount of time and get used to West Coast compared to home.
Yeah.
So,
and it's not like they have a long. It's not like they have a long break. They go Tuesday, UCLA, and then they come home and they play Illinois in an early afternoon. I think it's 3:00 early afternoon game on Saturday. So even though it's four days, it's not gonna pretty quick turnaround for all that travel.
Sure, absolutely. Well, big win for Purdue tonight. It's what do we got here? Oh yeah, you threw up the.
I'm throwing up the comment.
The comment, I just saw that, so I'm glad you said that or did that. Big win for Purdue, 79-72 over Iowa. This is a good Iowa team, so the fact that they got the win over an Iowa team that doesn't, they're not ranked, but they have been ranked, and I would not be shocked to see them ranked at some point again this season. But it's always good, and we've got to go back. We've got to go to Iowa City to play play them there. So Carver Hawkeye, always a tough place to play. But I think this was a great step to start on our way to the West.
Yeah, I think that, Iowa's a really good team, and I think the thing that people forget is that they lost 2 in a row. Like, this is a team that wants to win, and from a psychology standpoint, like, just get back out there and you want to put. So Purdue got Iowa's best shot tonight. This wasn't a team. Sometimes I think that when you play a team that lost 2 in a row, sometimes that can be a little bit of a problem. And I thought Blake put it up, said something really good about the way the team closed out. That's championship medal. I think for the first, 30 minutes of that game, you probably wouldn't say it, but Purdue did the little things, made the defensive stops, hit some big shots. And this team just, even in close games, they just don't get phased. So even if the results, and what's crazy to me is people are going to complain about the results. Purdue's 6-0, they're 16-1 on the season, and Purdue's, they're not winning games by enough, right? Like, it's crazy. But like, to make those plays.
Hey, if you win a game by a point, you're winning by enough.
Exactly. That's all that matters. So the fact that they were able to do that against a hungry, feisty Iowa team, this is a good team that's loaded with talent. They should have probably beat Minnesota on the road. They hung tough with Illinois after a tough start. This is a championship caliber team for the reasons that are mentioned. Like, they didn't give up. They made the plays when they needed to. They weren't too afraid of the moment. When they got down 9, they fought back. And I think a lot of teams in that situation that don't have that same grit fold, and Purdue didn't do that tonight. So that's a really good sign, even though the first half didn't go nearly as well as what people had hoped.
Well, and you and I mentioned that Iowa tends to start a little slow, and they didn't tonight. They actually started out really well tonight, and Purdue was able to take their best shot, I guess, in that first half, and say, okay, well, we're still here. You guys had the half that we weren't expecting you to have. Think about it, if they would have shot what they normally do. Purdue might have been up by 7 points at the half. Honestly, and I don't want to say poorly, because it makes it seem like it was an ugly first half. They didn't play poorly. They just didn't blow they didn't blow everybody out of the water with the way they shot. Iowa played so well in that first half that it wasn't that Purdue played poorly. It's just they didn't play as well as Iowa.
Right. And I think you could tell, like, the fouling situation had a big impact on this game, because Purdue ends the game. They only shot 14 3-pointers. So obviously they wanted to establish themselves in the post, and they weren't getting what they felt like were good looks from the perimeter. Now they made 6 of them, so they had a pretty good percentage, but they didn't shoot a high volume tonight. And so I think that, they got thrown out of a rhythm early. They were able to get some guys to step up off the bench, and that's what you need. We talked about, just the other night, they only got 4 points off the bench in the Penn State game, and tonight they got 21, I think it was. And I know Benter and Jacobson were a large majority of that. I think they counted for 13 of those. But
21 to 10.
The fact that they were able to get 21 points off the bench, and a lot of that came at a time when they needed it. That's why this team's depth is so dangerous in the Big Ten.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, big win for the Boilermakers, 79-72 over Iowa. That's going to bring us to the end of BoilerBall postgame in the lounge. Oh, Dustin, what a great, now it's time to watch them on TV on the West Coast, but definitely a couple of games that I'm really interested in seeing how they perform. And then when they come back to take on Illinois, I'll be interested to see how they perform too. So, all right, everybody, thanks so much for joining us in the BoilerBall post game in the lounge. For Dustin Schutte, I'm Sam Sprunger. We'll see you next time.